This instructional program discusses teaching the lazy 8. We're going to present several techniques, cover some common errors, and give you an opportunity to witness a good debriefing. Let's get started. Your student must pick the direction to work. If he starts from the middle of his area, he may not have room for more than one lazy 8 before reaching the edge. Each lazy 8 displaces the aircraft about 5 miles. So one good plan is to start at your area edge and fly several lazy 8s across the area. If the area lacks good ground references, have your students set up the same way and select imaginary points for 90 degrees and 180 degrees of turn. This is easier than maneuvering around to use one good ground reference and stay in the area at the same time. The lazy 8 takes about 5,000 feet of altitude, so you may allow flexibility on the starting altitude. Have your student consider the next maneuver in the profile to ensure the energy level is efficient. 95% will hold about 350 knots in level flight. So if your student gets his level flight picture set in his windscreen at the same time he arrives on speed and sets the power, he'll have ample time to recheck his area orientation and clear. Notice how this student picks his 90-degree point as the nose starts up. Most IPs instruct to apply backstick first and blend an aileron as the nose starts above the horizon. Emphasize the laziness of the roll. The aircraft needs plenty of time to track through 90 degrees of turn and lose 150 knots of airspeed. Ideally, the student divides his attention between his 90-degree point, which is out near the horizon, and clearing in front of the aircraft. Many IPs instruct to cross-check progress after 45 degrees of turn. For example, the inside fire warning light is near the horizon. This method for checking pitch is preferable to using the ADI, and it works in both cockpits. Bank angle can be checked by referencing the horizon, and it should be approximately 45 degrees. Some IPs don't check these items at 45 degrees of turn, so here's an important point that applies for everyone. At the 45-degree point, the airspeed is dropping off rather fast. Backstick must be continued to keep the nose tracking toward the 90-degree point. Healthy back pressure may be required, especially if the aircraft is not in trim. The roll is continuous to 90 degrees of bank, and the student's 90-degree reference passes through the middle of his windscreen. The student's head should block your view of the point as the nose passes through the horizon. Emphasize a quick analysis of the turn. Was the 90-degree point met, and is the airspeed 200 knots? Your student needs this knowledge along with memory of what the pitch and roll looked like to make corrections during the next attempt. After you reach this point in the lazy 8, the next 45 degrees of turn is probably the hardest part of the maneuver. Your student should pick out a 180-degree point. This will improve his flying and aero analysis during the lower half of the maneuver. Small aileron movement for a lazy rollout is very important, and here's why. The high bank angles over a longer time allow the nose to fall below the horizon. It should go as far below the horizon as it was above, and really must do so if you expect to get back to 350 knots. While you're in high bank angles, try applying back pressure near the tickle. You might describe this as light buffet or a mild vibration of the airframe. This gives you a good turn rate for the first 45 degrees of rollout and puts you in a good position to play the last part of the 180-degree turn and come out on speed. A perfect maneuver would have a constant rate of roll. As your student works toward perfection, you want to emphasize outside references, clearing, and a smooth maneuver. If your student can achieve these items and the maneuver meets procedure requirements, don't be overly critical of minor changes in roll rate. Now the student completes the lazy 8 with a turn in the opposite direction. Here are some tips you might look for. After each half of the maneuver, the student needs to recheck his position in the area. Doing right turns back-to-back is obviously preferable to flying out of the area. If the first half of the maneuver was very poor, it's probably better to set up again and start over. In any event, the second part of the maneuver should not have the same mistakes as the first part. If the same type mistake is made, it should be to a lesser degree. During the entire maneuver, have your student cross-check 3 primary things. First, spot his 90-degree and 180-degree points and fly his pitot boom toward them. Next, clear out in front of the pitot boom and along the nose track. And last, check the horizon in relation to his canopy bow, mirrors, glare shield, or other aircraft references. All aircraft maneuvers require a division of attention. A student who can accomplish this effectively usually flies a smooth aircraft and detects poor roll and pitch coordination quickly. Discuss the division of attention concept with your student. It may be hard for you to recognize improvements because you can't see his eyes move or know what he's thinking. Remind him occasionally that a cross-check is required for all flight maneuvers, and he'll improve his cross-check ability over the months you fly with him. Here are several of the most common mistakes made during the Lazy 8. Once the word gets out that a Lazy 8 is a wingover, some students invariably lock on to the ADI. When you don't see that front seater's head turn to find a visual reference, prompt him with a question like, "Are you using the tallest cloud out there?" Maybe the student doesn't pick the best reference available, but if he at least picks one and keeps it in his cross-check, that's a good beginning. More students rush the roll rather than perform it too slowly. They wind up short of the 90-degree point or hot on airspeed. Sometimes they're short of the 90-degree point because they don't keep backstick coming in after about 45 degrees of turn. Trial and error is needed to fix the problem. You might relate a slower roll to more time for the nose above the horizon. This provides for a slower airspeed and the ability to turn the full 90 degrees. This explanation could also help the student develop his own error analysis ability. The lower half of the maneuver can be rushed. This happens a lot even after the climbing portion has been done correctly. Stress these 2 points and the lower half of the maneuver will improve. Let's assume your student flew the first half of a Lazy 8 shown by this graphic. The first part of the maneuver had a good turn, but airspeed was about 215 knots. The lower half was really rushed, say about 25 degrees short on turn, with an airspeed of 330 knots. How would you debrief this maneuver?
How was your Lazy 8 today?
Well, the first part seemed to go okay, but the lower part was a little bit rushed. I was pretty low on airspeed when I finished.
On the first part of the maneuver, did you make your 90-degree turn point?
Yes, sir.
Yes, you did, but how was your airspeed there?
Well, I guess it was a little high.
Next time, try a little slower roll. The same back pressure will give you a slightly higher pitch attitude at that 90-degree turn point and take care of that extra speed.
Okay.
Remember to make it only a small decrease in roll rate. You were just a little fast, so it won't take much of a correction.
I see.
Now, what point did you have for your 180 degrees of turn?
Well, sir, I really don't recall. I was concentrating primarily on a constant rollout.
I noticed you didn't look in the direction of the point that I picked. Next time, pick a good point for the rollout and keep it in your cross-check.
Yes, sir.
Now, when you begin the rollout, use only a small amount of stick movement, nice and lazy. You're trying to get most of the turn done while you're still in a big bank angle.
I understand.
Okay, you have your final point in sight. So from 135 degrees of turn on, you're simply playing bank and back pressure to arrive at your point on speed.
Yes, today I was about 330 knots or so.
Right, and you were short of your turn point also. Next time, keep your 180-degree point in your cross-check and fly a smooth descending turn around to it. Get the turn correct first, then work on the pitch and the airspeed will take care of itself.
Yes, sir.
So today, the first part of the maneuver was pretty nice, but the second half needs a lot of improvement.
Let's examine that debriefing. I'm not going to tell you it was perfect, nor was it the only way to get the job done, but it had some good points. The purpose of a debriefing is to improve the student's future performance. And this IP had enthusiasm, and he showed he had the student's interest in mind by treating him with due respect. He asked some questions to get the student involved. If a student remembers a lot about the maneuvers he flew and can analyze his mistakes himself, that's a good indication that he's at ease in the airplane and his mind is staying up with the situation. The IP recapped the maneuver. The student was complimented for his good flying, and he knows exactly what must be done to improve the situation next time. Not only that, but he has a specific plan for improvement. When you tell a student where to look, what's in his cross-check at a certain time, or how to move the stick and rudder, that's how-to instruction. One last thing. Did you notice that the IP didn't start the debriefing by mentioning the maneuver grade? The grade's probably low, but the IP concentrated on how to recognize and improve mistakes. The student will accept the grade more readily when he understands the mistakes he made. When all the grades are recorded, the IP can review the mission and tell the student how he's doing in the program. This quote may be corny, but there's a lot of truth in it.